Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out Cornwall, a Celtic nation trapped in England. Cornish language, culture, and identity. Cool.
Dithda. That's hello in a language that was brought back from the brink of extinction at the beginning of the 20th century.
Dithda, y'all.
At the southwesternmost tip of the UK, beyond these cliffs, there's nothing but thousands of miles of Atlantic Ocean until the shores of North America. This is Cornwall, home to over 500,000 people and once upon a time a totally independent kingdom, but now administered as a county of England.
Okay.
It's one of the Celtic nations and has maintained a distinct identity and even its own language for centuries, despite losing its independence over 1,000 years ago. Many people here don't consider themselves to be English. They are, first and foremost, Cornish. This is one of Britain's most culturally underrepresented regions. And as a result, a lot of people in the rest of the UK don't realise that the Cornish are ethnically and culturally distinct from
They have
the
their own
English.
flag? Hang on. Y'all be sure to go to Tieran Freedman and like and subscribe. Show me on a map. If I just type in Cornwall, UK, what does it show me? Oh, it's all of that. Okay. Interesting. Show me photos. That looks like what we were just seeing. Wow. It's so interesting because the water looks like tropical. But then there's these cliffs. A church. Cliffs. A beach. Look at that. Yo, that looks like the south of France or something, right? Mediterranean style. Beautiful. Yes, beautiful. Looks like there's a little trail. Oh my gosh. Somebody carved this trail to get to the top of that mound. Who did that? My gosh, can you imagine building a fort up there? Okay, this looks like a normal town. What is that? Hop and Vine. I bet it's a pub. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh. Oh, that's a bridge. Terrifying. Terrifying. Beautiful. A hole. Beautiful. Look at that clear water. Another hole. Oh, it's under that bridge. At least it's not a rope bridge, you know? Wow. I wonder how old these, these are. Levees? Are those levees? Dikes? I don't know. Wow. Beautiful. Oh, that's so cool. Wow. Wow. I wouldn't expect that this is part of Britain, you know? Other than the architecture, it just looks so Mediterranean. Wow. Beautiful. Okay. And they have their own flag. Okay. Hang on. Cornish. Of course, hen comes up. Cornish flag. Okay, yeah. Why isn't that part of the Union Jack? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe they could argue that it is, but maybe it's covered up by the English part of the Union Jack. That's a dope flag, actually.
Are ethnically and culturally distinct from the English. So post-lockdown, I took an 8-hour train to Truro, Cornwall's capital, to find out why this particular part of Great Britain is so unique.
Okay.
I've forgotten how to do
Hang
this.
on. Before we get too far into Truro, let me check out Truro on a map. Truro. Truro is a cathedral city and civil parish of Cornwall, England. It is the southernmost city in the United Kingdom, just under 232 miles west-southwest of Charing Cross in London. Cool. Where is it? Okay. Wow. I mean, there are other cities down here. Maybe, I guess. Okay. Show me photos. Oh, that's a huge cathedral. Beautiful. 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 Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Art. A river cathedral. Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Okay, I see.
It's been so long since I've been anywhere.
He's masked up. Okay.
The Celtic nations have very different historical roots to England. Without going into tons of detail, they're pockets where the Celtic tribes that once dominated much of Europe continued to thrive, despite foreign conquests of the British Isles.
Oh, they're on the west side.
That meant that in those regions, Celtic culture didn't change in the same way that English culture did with the new arrivals, and persisted until today in what is now Cornwall, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, the Isle of Man, and Brittany in northwestern France.
Okay.
But that raises a question. What actually defines Cornish identity? While I was there, I spoke with some locals, socially distanced of course, in person and on Zoom.
Meil kills all nebys gerio, mes nialavi kun feathers all whap. That's all.
About this all too often ignored culture.
Mebyn Cerno is in the Cornish language, and it means sons and daughters of Cornwall. It's why you'll see the word Cerno used a lot in Cornwall, because it's a reclaiming of the Cornish word for Cornwall. I've always been proud to be Cornish, but I would say that the symbols and the expression of that identity is actually greater now. I think that people probably 40, 50, 60 years ago felt that it kind of went without saying. For me, diversity, it's not about ignoring our distinct identities, it's about celebrating those distinct identities. And Cornwall is an incredibly historic but incredibly important part of the wonderful mix that makes up that diversity.
Yeah, I love how they're flying the flag. You know? Some stereotype that I always hear about American versus British is that Americans put the American flag out in front of their house or on tops of businesses and clothes and hats, and the Union Jack isn't really put out there like that. The British don't really show their patriotism in that way, kind of because it's a little bit tacky. I could see that, but I love that the Cornish people are doing that. It's a cool looking flag. They should fly it. They should be proud of it. I love that. I think that's great. Way to go.
Incredibly important part of the wonderful mix that makes up that diversity.
There's a very strong connection with the landscape and almost a feeling of belonging to it, and a bit belonging to you in Cornwall, and not necessarily you as an individual, but you as a group. In each and every one of us, you know, certainly in me, we identify strongly with it, and it's not only my generation, but my predecessors did as well, and I know that because they told me, you know, they told me they felt as though it was something alive, almost. My grandfather.
It is alive, I think.
He felt it was a living thing.
Well, I think things like the melancholy, that's special, isn't it? It's a face that people see of the Cornish that they mistake as being grumpy, but it's something that's brought on by where you live and how hard it can be at times, or how you deal with the situation. It's a calmness about people that's very often mistaken.
As you can see, Tieran.
So I think what she's saying is that if you walk around Cornwall, you might see grumpy faces, but they're not grumpy. They have resting Cornish face.
As you will see, Tieran, we are a very passionate people. You are the worst of enemies and the best of friends. We will fight you. We will fight you to the bitter end. But win or lose, we will then take you for a pint.
You know, the Cornish have always been quite clannish and stuck together. Their motto is one and all, which means we like people to be individual, but we also stick together.
And I think the geography of Cornwall, being that we're quite isolated, you don't cross borders very often. You know, it's very much more condensed.
You know, when you cross the Tamar, and it's an emotional thing when you cross that river and come home, yeah.
What does it say? The Tamar River forms the boundary between Cornwall and Devon. Okay, let me look at that. Where's that river? Show me your river. Ah, okay. Yeah, okay. So that's the... Okay, got it.
Every group of people has different waves of identity. You know, the identity of Cornwall before the Industrial Revolution would be very different, would be around fishing, farming. With the Industrial Revolution, it's very much based around mining and Methodism.
That legacy
Methodism?
of mining is...
What do you mean Methodism? What does that mean? Exactly. Methodism. Methodism, also called the Methodist movement. No. I don't think that's what he's talking about. Right? Religion?
That legacy of mining is scattered across the Cornish countryside. Abandoned mines dot the coastline, and Cornwall's mining landscape is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But that's just it. It's heritage. There are no functioning mines left here, which means that a working tradition, once an integral part of Cornwall's identity, passed down through generations, has disappeared.
I guess we're in a new phase now, because there is deindustrialisation. We're in the 21st century, so Cornwall's identity will be different today from how it was 200 years ago. And to me, again, optimistically, that's an exciting challenge. I'm not saying we should recreate Cornwall, I'm saying we should express the Cornwall that exists now.
There are some aspects of Cornish identity that are easier to define. Though it was once down to just 4 or 5 speakers, Cornwall has its own language. UNESCO
4
only
or
changed
5?
the classification.
Whoa, it got down to 4 or 5 speakers? What? Hang on. Cornish language. Cornish, pronounced Kerner, is a southwestern Brittonic language of the Celtic language family, along with Welsh and Breton. Cornish is descended from the common Brittonic language spoken throughout much of Great Britain before the English language came to dominate. For centuries, until it was pushed westwards by English, it was the main language of Cornwall, maintaining close links with its sister language Breton, with which it was mutually intelligible, perhaps even as long as Cornish continued to be spoken as a vernacular. Cornish became extinct as a living community language in Cornwall by the end of the 18th century. A revival started in the early 20th century, and in 2010, UNESCO reclassified the language as critically endangered. A small number of people in Cornwall have been brought up to be bilingual native speakers, and the language is taught in schools and appears on street nameplates. The first Cornish language daycare opened in 2010. Wow. I didn't know there was a Cornish language. I had no idea. I knew there was a Welsh language, and I guess it's similar. Am I offending people by saying that? Probably.
Of Cornish from extinct to critically endangered in 2009. But nowadays, there are around 400 to 500 people who can speak it fluently.
Okay.
And that's all because of a very impressive revival effort that's taken place over the last 100 years or so.
We are now recovering our language, and as we recover our language, a lot of people actually learn about Cornish history through their language lessons as well. And then you learn about what place names mean, and then you understand and get a better relationship with your landscape.
Flying that flag.
I, as a child, wouldn't have even known that the Cornish language existed. You know, it wasn't something that you ever saw. I mean, the visibility of the language has become so much more over the, probably the last 10 years even.
Wow.
The Cornish people have bootstrapped their language from pretty much almost it being deceased. As a community, we're probably all quite proud of where we've got to, but I think we're also realistic that it's quite difficult to make it snowball very fast. It would help the community prosper, I think. Having a bit more pride enables people to build upon what they've actually got.
But while Cornwall is starting to rediscover its language and heritage, things haven't always been smooth sailing in this Celtic nation.
Language really does change the way we think. It shapes the way we think, helps us organize our thoughts. If you don't have a word for something, you don't have that specific idea as well. As specifically. What am I talking about? You know what I'm saying. So for these folks to be learning the language again is pretty fascinating because, yeah, it changes the way they think, it colors their thoughts, and it gives them pride in their ancestors and their location. That's kind of neat.
Enables people to build upon what they've actually got.
But while Cornwall is starting to rediscover its language and heritage, things haven't always been smooth sailing in this Celtic nation. And it's hard to deny that the Cornish are a marginalised community. More on that, though, in part 2. Until then,
Okay.
Da Willis.
Da Willis. Oh, okay. See ya. Alright. Y'all be sure to go to Tieran Freedman and like and subscribe. I want to see part 2.
Look, if they can't afford to be independent if they're giving all their money to England. Now, if we had all our money, then maybe we could be independent.
That
Welcome
sounds like
to a
Brexit
nation
talk.
with its very own language, trapped inside England. This is Cornwall.
Okay. Low tide. Wow.
In
People
part
just leave their
1,
boats like
I
that?
travelled down to the southwestern tip of the UK and met with local people to learn a bit about what it means to be Cornish.
Wow.
Because
Hang on. They just leave their boats in the water and let low tide? Oh, I've never seen that. I grew up in Florida and that happens, but people put their boats like on a dock or on a lift. They don't just let them sit on the dirt. Oh, that's interesting. I guess they drop anchor and just, walk out to the boat. Fascinating.
In part 1, I travelled down to the southwestern tip of the UK and met with local people to learn a bit about what it means to be Cornish. Because it turns out there's an entire culture and identity here that is all too often ignored by much of Britain. There's a distinct history, unique food, and even a Cornish language, which is critically endangered and spoken fluently by 400 to 500 people. But I also learned that the Cornish are a marginalised community.
Wait, let's hear some of that. Let's hear some of that authentic language.
And spoken fluently by 400 to 500 people.
Wow.
But I
Very
also
different.
learned that the Cornish are a marginalised community, and the relationship between Cornwall and the rest of England has a pretty checkered history. Even today, there are still significant tensions.
Really?
The tensions arise from things like the
Where there are those
disparity of
conflicts.
wealth. So, like, Cornwall's not an easy place to earn a good salary. You know, it's not an easy place to be a young person trying to find work and trying to find your way in the world. There's a lot of villages where there are some beautiful cottages, absolutely beautiful, where the Cornish people that live here are priced out of the market. The houses are holiday homes. So I could walk through on a winter's day and not see anybody. You know, the shops have shut down, and even in the summer, you know, the homes can be empty for a long time. And so that's where the tensions arise, where you see these beautiful villages, and there'll always be a council estate, and the council estate will be where the locals live, even the ones that are the fishermen, you know, who have to then travel down to the harbour because they can't afford to live near the harbour, when traditionally the fishing cottages were, because those fishing cottages are now holiday homes.
Wow.
In some communities.
Oh, man. Phew. I mean, it does seem like the kind of place that would be perfect for a vacation home. I get it, for sure. By the shore, ocean, whatever beach you call it. The shoal, the beach, the coast. I don't know what you would call it. You know what I'm saying, by the water. But the locals, they've been priced out of their homes. They've probably had those homes for generations and it keeps getting passed down, but the value goes up. What if they have to pay property taxes? Probably crazy. But yeah, I'd imagine that it probably is tough for a young person to find their way there because all the jobs are taken. How many fishermen can a place like that support? How many shopkeepers do you need, right? Jobs are full. What else are you going to do? Move to London, work at a bank.
It's a huge problem, particularly around the coast. The worst example of a statistic, I would say, is on the north coast. There are some constituencies, some parishes, where 40% of the houses are second homes. Most importantly, it's a problem for the vibrancy and the lifeblood of that community.
Oh yeah, because people aren't there half of the year, or most of the year. It's a vacation.
The vibrancy and the lifeblood of that community. We've got some lovely second homeowners that have houses in our village, but they're no good to me during lockdown to go and deliver prescriptions to people who are locked away inside, who are shielding. So you need an active, energetic community, and what that requires is people to live in that community.
Yeah.
I can recommend here, and it's a good time of year for you to go to Newquay or St Ives or Perranporth. Watch the tumbleweeds go down the streets with all the closed shops.
With the holiday cottages, there's often a misapprehension that, you come and rent a lovely holiday cottage and that rent is going to go back to a local Cornish family that own the cottage. That's absolutely often not the case. And I think some of the lovely tourists we have think they're putting into the Cornish economy. Actually, that money is going out of the Cornish economy into holiday cottage owners and second home owners that actually live up country. And that's deplorable.
Or it goes to some corporation like Blackstone.
And that should have been dealt with by this present government.
Yeah. Get with it. Look at that. Beautiful.
With such beautiful scenery and nature, it's not surprising that people travel from far and wide to visit.
Whoa. At first I thought, it's like little pebbles on the coast, but then I saw these seals. And I realized these are gigantic boulders. Look how small these seals are.
Nature, it's not surprising that people travel from far and wide to visit him. But it was easy to imagine locals' frustration, seeing the homes their parents or grandparents grew up in left empty by some wealthy Londoner except for a couple of weeks of the year. I suppose it must feel like your heritage is being treated as a commodity. And not much is being done by the government to address issues that Cornish people have raised, like regulating tourism in second homes, dealing with discrimination, or preserving the language. Despite its history and the recognition of the Cornish as a distinct ethnic minority, Cornwall is still administered as a county, so there's only so much that can be done without government support.
They're an ethnic minority? They look like white people to me. How is that an ethnic... Wait. Are the Cornish an ethnicity? Oh. On 24th of April 2014, the UK government recognized the Cornish as a national minority under the European Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities. The decision to recognize the unique identity of the Cornish now affords them the same status as the Scots, the Welsh. Okay. Those are mostly white folks, too. Is that an ethnic group, though? That's not how I think of an ethnic group. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess I think of ethnicity as race, but I guess it's not. An ethnicity or ethnic group is a group of people who identify with each other on the basis of perceived shared attributes that distinguish them from other groups. Those attributes can include a people of a common language, culture, common sets of ancestry, traditions, society, religion, history. Oh, yeah. No. It's not race at all, I guess. Okay, wow. Yeah, I just learned a very broad lesson about ethnicity. Wow. Huh. What's my ethnicity? Redneck?
And all these tensions have fueled a growing Cornish nationalism movement. But it's probably not the kind of nationalism you're used to. It's not a right or left-wing message. Instead, it's a push for more powers to be returned to Cornwall, and for the region to have its own parliament. Some even want total independence.
The problem we have is too many decisions about Cornwall are made outside of Cornwall. Not only are we administered as if we're a county of Cornwall, but we're also subsumed into larger units.
They call it Devonwall or something, yeah.
Yeah, Devonwall is a phenomenon that's been going on since the 1980s. And then we've got Bristol as a regional capital. So as well as being administered like an English county, a marginal group is further marginalised in a fake constructed region.
Hypothetically, would you all like an independent Cornwall in an ideal world?
Personally, I'd like us to be independent.
Yeah.
And we certainly need more autonomy because we give our money to England and we get pennies back. You know, we're in a similar position to Wales and Scotland. People who say Wales is too wee, too small, too poor. But they give all their money to England, who gives them a pittance in return and then says they can't afford to be independent. You know, of course they can't afford to be independent if they're giving all their money to England. We can't be independent if we're giving all our money to England. Now, if we had all our money, then maybe we could be independent.
Your common bases, I think, amongst any people who are at all interested in Cornwall, its language, its history, its culture, its economy, its democracy, and so on. The basic line is we would like to see more power in Cornwall, and then let's see where it goes from there. Let's see us empowered first, and let's see where that journey leads us.
Maybe ease into it, because independence, all of a sudden, maybe England's not giving them money in the form of money, funding. What about, like, trash removal, power distribution, and all that stuff? Maybe ease into it, you know? I like the sentiment. I think the intention's good for an independent Cornwall, but it kind of has echoes of Brexit, which, as an American, I don't think it's my place to get too deep into that. But, you know, maybe dip your toe into some independence, right? Like, just see what happens with that money when you get it, right? I don't know. What do y'all think? Should Cornwall be independent? Feels scary. Feels risky to me. I don't know anything. I'm just learning about this place. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. All the mines are closed, apparently. You got some fishing rights, probably. Water rights. Can you catch that much fish to support a country? I don't know. Let's consider it.
We're not extremists, you see. A lot of people take a pride in Cornwall and being a Cornish patriot, I prefer, as being some sort of extremist. Well, I don't feel it as such. You know, I'm proud of my history, heritage. I'm proud of my environment.
Good.
And I'm proud of the language, you know.
We want a Cornwall where Cornish people are not second-class citizens, where our education is given a Cornish perspective. There is a history of ethnic tension between Cornwall and England, and that gets erased from our education system.
Is then maybe the best and most realistic option, is it maybe a Cornish assembly? Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that something that you could see happening in the next, 10 years or so?
No.
Not at all.
No.
A common theme that popped up in my conversations with Cornish people was that a lot of them really don't feel heard. You could argue that that's why populist messages like Brexit resonated so much here. The problem with the Cornish Assembly isn't necessarily that people in Cornwall don't want it, it's that there isn't the will in government to make it happen. But there is one political party hoping to change that. Mebyon Kerner. And Michael is their party development officer and one of their elected councillors.
To me, decisions are always best made locally. The Cornish economy is different from the economy even of Exeter. The policy that we come up for Cornwall needs to be distinct to Cornwall.
Hang on, what's Exeter? Is it nearby? It is nearby. Okay.
There's a real crisis of democracy in the United Kingdom. We're an incredibly centralised state, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's real disillusionment with politics. How can you run a politics on with 65, 70, 80 million people? What you need to do is have devolved power where decisions can be taken locally, and I have faith that A, there'll be better decisions, but B, there'll be more accountable decisions.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah. Easier to hold representatives accountable if it's smaller, local, right?
How do you get it? What's the Is it as simple as just a vote in Parliament?
Okay.
Is that it? Or-
So it would be, but I think we'd lose that vote in Parliament, sadly, because we don't have any MPs that are maybe in Cornwall. I think for us,
They don't have any
big
MPs.
milestone is the Cornwall Council elections. So I'm standing for two of my local parishes to be a parish councillor, but also a Cornwall councillor. And maybe in Cornwall needs a breakthrough.
Hang on. MPs of Cornwall. Okay, they have representatives.
And I actually think if we won a majority on Cornwall Council, that would send the strongest message ever to Parliament. I've come to learn that everything can change in a year. Things can stay the same for 10 years. So change is unpredictable. However, I think if we can achieve a Cornish Parliament, we can have a positive, cooperative approach to making decisions here. I think if we don't, I worry that we'd continue with much of the same. And in many ways, we have had deindustrialisation, we have had economic decline.
What does that say? This economic decline means Cornwall has qualified for £1 billion in EU Objective 1 funding since 2000. After Brexit, this will no longer continue. £1 billion is a lot. Damn. Yeah, I guess they don't have it anymore.
We in the Cornish movement would still be doing everything we can, and there probably would still be a very positive community vibrancy on a local level, and that's great, but sometimes it can feel like you're madly paddling under the water but actually getting nowhere on a national level. So I feel that it needs to be institutionalised. It has to be more than just a Cornwall council. It has to have more powers to make real changes for ordinary people's lives.
There's a lot that makes Cornwall Cornwall. Way too much to cover in 1 or 2 videos. But speaking to locals here gave me a glimpse into a culture I'd previously known next to nothing about. A lot of Brits aren't aware that Cornish is even a language, and we're not taught about Cornwall in school.
Really?
But it's been there for a long time, and its border with England is one of the oldest geopolitical boundaries in the world. It's difficult to find any reliable numbers when it comes to public support for Cornish autonomy.
That's a tall
And
bridge.
changing the political landscape enough to get a vote on it seems like a monumental task. But if the last few years have proved anything, it's that definitely doesn't mean it's impossible. So who knows? Maybe one day the United Kingdom will welcome a new, officially recognised country into the mix.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll happen. England probably doesn't want to lose out on those tax dollars. Tax pounds, I mean. Silver. Y'all be sure to go to Tieran Freedman and like and subscribe. I didn't know there was this movement towards Cornwall independence. I mean, just from looking at it on a map, it looks like it would be a vacation paradise. See, that's the thing, though. They don't want that. That would not be preserving the heritage or the tradition. To put a bunch of hotels up there. Yeah, it would help the economy, but yeah. So I know all the mines are closed, but are there minerals in there? Are they wiped out? What other resources are there? What resources are in Cornwall? High potential opportunity for tech metals due to its abundance of tin, tungsten, copper, and one of the largest concentrations of lithium-enriched granite. Y'all, get it on. Get that money. Get down in that lithium-enriched granite. Get it. Why did the mines close? Was that a Thatcherism thing? During the 20th century, various ones were briefly profitable and mines were reopened, but today none remain. Dulcoath Mine, Cornish for old ground. The queen of Cornish mines was 3,500 feet deep. Wow. And was for many years the deepest mine in the world. Yeah, no kidding. Not to mention one of the oldest before its closure in 1921. The last working tin mine in Europe was South Crofty near Camborne until its closure in March 1998. After an attempt was made to reopen it, it was abandoned. There were local media reports in September 2006 that South Crofty was being considered for reopening as the price of tin had soared. The collapse of the International Tin Council in 1986 was the end for Cornish and Devonian tin mining. I guess it's not profitable is why they're not doing it. Oh, in April 2019, a British-based company, Met Amper Limited, drilled 6 lithium exploration holes in the UK at a site near St. Austell. Met Amper has successfully extracted lithium from hard rock at a laboratory scale, resulting in plans for a further 20 drill holes. In 2021, a new mine was extracting battery-grade lithium carbonate. Y'all, do it. Do it. Get that money. Maybe not, though. I don't know. It's probably bad for the environment. I don't know. I don't have the answer. Build a bunch of hotels, casinos, classy stuff. I don't know. Interesting, though. It looks like a beautiful place. I definitely want to visit it. That's on the bucket list. Well, y'all, this was educational. Thank y'all for watching it with me. I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.